One email exposed my wife's betrayal after 12 years together. I used to think my life could be measured in years, school years, college years, business years, marriage years. But that morning I measured it in seconds. The seconds between my phone buzzing and my hand deciding to pick it up. It was a regular Wednesday, the kind that looks successful in the most boring way possible. My calendar was clean, my company was stable, my investments were quietly doing their job, and my home was supposed to be the one place where nothing unexpected ever happened. My wife and I had been together since school, 12 years of shared jokes, shared dreams, shared struggle. We grew up together, we failed together, we learned together. When I had nothing but an idea and stubborn confidence, she stood next to me and told me not to quit. I built my business with determination and long nights. I became wealthy through focus and discipline, not luck. And I never forgot who stood with me before the success showed up. Her name was Lena, and for most of our life, together she felt like home, not excitement, not drama, just calm certainty, the kind you do not question. That is why the first warning sign did not look like betrayal. It looked like distance, small quiet distance that sneaks in without making noise. It started with a birthday party. Her friend Maya, she mentioned it casually while getting ready, said it would just be friends and music and laughs. She said she would be back before midnight. I told her to enjoy it and meant it. Trust was never something I had to force. She came back late, not too late, but late enough for the house to feel different. She smiled, but the smile felt borrowed. Her hug felt polite. Her voice sounded tired in a way I could not explain. I brushed it off. Everyone has off nights. Over the next day, something shifted. She became colder, quieter, less present. She stopped asking about my day, stopped touching my hand when we walked, stopped laughing at the small things she used to tease me about. She was there, but not really there. I tried to talk to her, calmly, respectfully, like two adults who built a life together, but she avoided every conversation. Always tired, always busy, always not now. 2 weeks passed like that, slow and uncomfortable. And then one afternoon I came home early. The house was empty and too quiet. I sat down at my desk and saw a new email already open on my laptop. The sender was a stranger. The subject line said, "You deserve to know." My first instinct was to close it, but my hand did not move. I opened the message and felt the room shrink around me. The email said my wife betrayed me at the birthday party. It said it was real. It said it was witnessed. It said it happened once. And then it mentioned something small and specific, a man with a silver watch. My chest went cold. Not anger, not panic, just shock. I read it again and again, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something harmless. But they did not. I heard the front door open, her keys drop into the bowl, her voice calling my name like everything was normal. She walked into the room and saw my face. And in that moment, I knew my life was standing on the edge of something I never planned for. She stopped in the doorway when she saw my face. That calm, confident face she knew better than anyone was gone, replaced by something rigid and distant. She asked what was wrong, but her voice already sounded nervous, like she knew the answer and hoped I would lie. I turned the laptop toward her. Without saying a word, I watched her eyes move across the screen, watched the color drain from her face, watched her shoulders tense like she had been carrying something heavy for too long. She whispered my name, not as a greeting, but as a warning, like she was asking me not to continue. I asked her one simple question. Is this true? No shouting, no accusations, just the truth standing naked between us. She shook her head at first, fast and desperate. Then she started crying, real crying, the kind you cannot fake even if you wanted to. She sat down hard in the chair across from me and covered her face, saying she never meant for it to happen, saying it was a mistake, saying it was only once. I felt frozen, not angry, not loud, just still, like someone pressed pause on my body but forgot to turn off my thoughts. She told me about the party, about drinking too much, about feeling lost and insecure, about a man she barely knew, about a stupid moment that destroyed something real. She kept repeating that it meant nothing, that I was everything, that she loved me, that it was just a one-time thing. I listened quietly, because once you hear the truth you cannot unhear it. I asked her about the silver watch. Her reaction answered me before her words did. She nodded slowly and started apologizing again, begging me to forgive her, promising therapy, promising change, promising anything I wanted. My mind drifted backward through our entire history, school hallways, first jobs, late nights building my company. Her sitting next to me believing in me before anyone else did. And then it drifted forward into a future that suddenly felt unfamiliar and unsafe. I realized something important in that moment. Love can survive many things, stress, distance, even anger, but it cannot survive betrayal without becoming something else. I told her I needed space, not drama, not punishment, just space to think. She tried to stop me, grabbed my arm gently, asked me not to leave, but I pulled away, calmly, packed a bag, and walked out of the house we built together. I checked into a hotel. That night, a quiet, expensive one where no one asked questions, my phone buzzed constantly, her name lighting up the screen again and again. I did not answer, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed silence more than explanations. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every detail, every missed sign, every moment I trusted without questioning. And by morning, I knew one thing for sure. My life was about to change whether I wanted it to or not. Morning came. Without permission, the kind of morning that feels rude for existing at all. Sunlight slipping through heavy hotel curtains like it had something to prove. I lay there longer than necessary, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how strange it was that my life could split so cleanly into before and after without any dramatic explosion. No shouting, no slammed doors, just silence doing all the damage. My phone was still buzzing every few minutes. Missed calls, messages stacking up, apologies, explanations, voice notes I did not open. I knew if I listened to her voice too early, I might soften in the wrong way. And this was not the time for softness. This was the time for clarity. I got up, showered, put on a suit even though I had no meetings. Routine felt like armor. And I went downstairs for coffee that tasted like nothing. Sitting there alone, I realized something uncomfortable. I was not falling apart. I was functioning. My mind was calm in a way that surprised me. Sadness was there, but it was organized, lined up neatly behind logic. And that scared me more than rage ever could. I thought about trust and how it works, how it is built slowly but can be damaged in seconds, and how once it cracks it never sounds the same again. Around mid-morning, I made a decision that felt inevitable. I called my lawyer, not a dramatic call, not an emotional one, just a professional conversation between two adults who understood consequences. He had helped me with business contracts for years, knew how my mind worked, knew I did not make impulsive moves. When I told him what happened, he did not interrupt. He listened quietly, then said something that stuck with me. You are allowed to protect what you built, emotionally and financially. That sentence grounded me. We talked through options carefully. No revenge plans, no traps, just strategy, fairness paired with self-respect. He explained what divorce would realistically look like, what steps mattered, what not to do, what to document, how to stay calm, how to stay ahead. He told me something else too, something honest. Forgiveness is personal, not mandatory. You do not owe it just because someone regrets their choices. After the call, I sat there for a long time, watching people walk in and out of the lobby, living their normal lives, laughing, complaining, scrolling their phones, completely unaware that my entire internal structure had been redesigned overnight. By afternoon, she showed up at the hotel. I did not tell her where I was, but she figured it out. She always knew how to read my habits. She waited in the lobby, sent a message asking to talk. Just 5 minutes. I agreed, not because I was ready, but because avoiding her forever was not strength. Facing reality calmly was. She looked smaller somehow when I saw her, not physically but emotionally, like the confidence she used to carry had cracked under its own weight. She cried again, apologized again, promised again, said she would do anything. Therapy, transparency, time, space. Whatever I needed, I listened, nodded, stayed composed. And then I told her something she was not prepared to hear. I said I believed she was sorry, but that did not change what happened. I said love without trust becomes anxiety, and I refused to live like that. I told her I was moving forward with divorce, not because I hated her, but because I respected myself. She begged, not dramatically, but desperately, reminding me of our history, our sacrifices, our plans, and I told her the truth. History explains behavior. It does not erase consequences. I did not raise my voice. I did not insult her. I simply stood up, wished her strength, and walked away. That evening back in my hotel room, I felt the weight finally land. Not crushing, just heavy. the kind you carry rather than fight. I opened my laptop and started organizing my life like a project, documents, timelines, decisions, not because I wanted control, but because clarity is how I survive storms, and as strange as it sounds. In that quiet room, I felt something unexpected, not relief, not happiness, but dignity. And that told me I was moving in the right direction. The next few days moved in a strange rhythm, too slow and too fast at the same time. Mornings felt heavy but functional. Nights stretched longer than they should. I kept myself busy on purpose: meetings, calls, numbers, decisions, the language I trusted when emotions became unreliable. My company did not know anything yet, and I liked it that way. Work was the one place where things still made sense, where effort led to results, and honesty mattered. At home, or what used to be home, Lena stayed quiet at first. Then the messages changed tone, less begging, more reflection. She wrote about mistakes, about confusion, about losing herself, about realizing too late what she risked. I read everything once, did not respond. Silence was not punishment, it was boundaries. People assume distance means anger. Sometimes it just means clarity. A week later, the story escaped our private space. It always does. A mutual friend called me, pretending to check in casually, then carefully asked if Lena and I were okay. I said we were not. No details, no performance, just truth. By evening, another call came. Then another, concern wrapped in curiosity. I learned something valuable in those moments. People listen to your tone more than your words. Because I did not sound broken or bitter, the story lost its power. There were rumors, of course, exaggerated versions, assumptions about money, about motives, about who was at fault. I let them float past me, correcting nothing, defending nothing. My dignity did not need witnesses. Lena, on the other hand, was struggling under the weight of her own choices. She tried to explain herself to people, to control the narrative, and in doing so she only exhausted herself further. One evening she asked if we could talk again, not to beg, just to understand. I agreed. We met in a neutral place, a quiet cafe where no memories lived. She looked tired, older somehow. Regret has a way of accelerating time. She asked me how I could be so calm, how I could walk away from 12 years without fighting harder. I answered honestly. I told her calm was not the absence of pain. It was the result of choosing not to betray myself while responding to her betrayal. I told her I fought hard for our relationship for 12 years, and that sometimes knowing when to stop is also a form of strength. She cried quietly, not theatrically, and said she finally understood what she lost, not just a husband, but safety, loyalty, and respect. I nodded, because that was true. After that conversation, something shifted again, this time inside me. The constant tension eased slightly, like my mind accepted the direction we were heading. I focused on preparing for the legal process. My lawyer handled everything with precision: documents filed, assets protected, timelines established. There was no hostility, just efficiency. Lena signed what needed to be signed with shaking hands, and I did not watch her do it. I stepped out of the room because endings deserve privacy. As the weeks passed, I noticed something unexpected. My energy returned. Not happiness, but clarity. I slept better, thought sharper, laughed occasionally at things I did not think I would laugh at so soon. I realized I was not rebuilding from nothing. I was continuing from experience. The man I was before her betrayal did not disappear. He evolved, and that realization gave me quiet confidence. People often think the loudest reactions are the strongest, but walking forward without bitterness is its own kind of power, and even though the story was not over yet, I could feel the ending taking shape. Not tragic, not dramatic, but honest, somewhere between signing documents and learning how to cook dinner for one without overdoing it. I noticed a subtle shift inside myself. It was not joy, not relief, but something steadier, perspective, the kind that only shows up after the storm has passed and you are left standing with your feet still on the ground. I moved out of the hotel and into a temporary apartment, overlooking the city, glass walls, quiet mornings, a place that felt neutral enough to let me breathe. I did not decorate much: a table, a chair, my laptop, a coffee machine. It was enough. Minimalism felt honest. My routine became simple: early workouts, focused workdays, evenings spent reading or walking through streets I used to rush past without noticing. People assume loneliness is loud, but most of the time it is just quiet, and quiet can be productive. Lena reached out less frequently. Now, her messages were no longer about getting me back. They were about understanding herself. Therapy sessions, realizations, regrets. I wished her well without reopening doors. Compassion does not require access. Around that time, something unexpected happened. My business entered negotiations for a major expansion, the kind that requires full attention and sharp instincts, and I was ready. More ready than I had been in years. Emotional clutter was gone. Decisions came faster, clearer. My partners noticed it too. One of them joked that heartbreak was good for leadership. I laughed and told him I preferred strategic clarity. The deal went through, successfully, quietly. No celebration dinner, no announcement post. Just a line added to my personal list of things that proved I was still moving forward. Word eventually reached Lena, not from me, but from mutual connections. She sent a short message congratulating me. I replied with a simple thank you. Nothing more, nothing less. That exchange marked something important. The shift from shared history to separate futures. Around the same time the divorce was finalized. No courtroom drama, no speeches, just signatures and silence. When it was officially over, I felt something I did not expect. Gratitude, not for the ending, but for the clarity it brought. I learned what I could survive without losing myself. I learned that loyalty to others means nothing if it comes at the cost of loyalty to yourself. Friends started inviting me out more, dinners, events, casual conversations. I went sometimes, declined others. I was selective now, not closed off. Just intentional. I noticed how differently I listened to people, how quickly I recognized patterns I used to ignore, red flags, emotional shortcuts, avoidance dressed up as charm. I was not cynical, I was informed. One evening, I ran into Lena by accident, a genuine accident, at a bookstore of all places. The irony was not lost on either of us. We talked briefly, politely. She looked healthier, calmer. She told me she was moving to another city for a fresh start. I wished her luck, and meant it. As I walked away, I felt no pull, no regret, just closure. On the way home, I realized something that made me smile quietly. I had not lost my life. I had refined it. Betrayal did not break me. It reorganized my priorities, my standards, my boundaries, and that realization carried a quiet power, the kind that does not need validation, the kind that simply moves forward. There is a moment after every major ending when life tests whether you actually learned anything or if you were just performing. Strength for survival. Mine came quietly on an ordinary evening. I was sitting alone in my apartment watching the city lights blink on one by one when I realized I had gone an entire day without thinking about the betrayal. Not because I was forcing myself to forget, but because my mind had simply moved on to better material. That realization felt almost suspicious, like calm before a storm, but the storm never came. Instead, there was peace, unfamiliar but welcome. I started noticing how much mental space had been freed up, space that used to be occupied by compromise, justification, emotional maintenance. I did not have to decode moods anymore or measure my words carefully. I could just exist as myself, fully and without apology. Work flourished in that environment, not because pain fuels success, but because clarity removes friction. I mentored younger entrepreneurs, traveled for meetings, spoke confidently about vision and growth, and people listened, not because I was louder, but because I was grounded. At some point, Lena reached out again, not emotionally, but practically. She had a question about a document related to the divorce. I answered politely and efficiently. Nothing lingered afterward, and that was when I knew the chapter had truly closed. There was no emotional echo, no urge to revisit the past, just neutral cooperation between two adults who shared history but not direction. Friends began asking if I would ever trust again, if I was afraid of repeating the same story. I told them the truth. I was not afraid. Fear assumes ignorance. I had experience now, discernment, standards. I knew what loyalty looked like, what accountability sounded like, and what avoidance felt like before it became damage. I did not need to guard my heart with walls, just with awareness. One weekend I visited my parents. Sat at the same kitchen table where my younger self once talked about dreams that felt impossibly big. My father looked at me and said something simple. "You seem lighter, not happier, just lighter." I smiled because he was right. Happiness comes and goes, but lightness stays when you stop carrying what is not yours. That night I reflected on the email that started everything. The stranger who decided I deserved the truth. I never found out who sent it, and I realized I did not need to. Some truths arrive without names, without explanations. They arrive because it is time. I understood then that the betrayal did not define my story, my response did. I did not seek revenge. I did not collapse. I did not lose my dignity chasing closure that never satisfies. I chose clarity, boundaries, and forward motion, and that choice quietly reshaped my life. As I prepared for sleep that night, I felt something rare and solid: confidence without arrogance, peace without denial, strength without hardness. And I knew the final chapter would not be about what I lost, but about what I protected: my self-respect, my future, my ability to walk away with my head high and my values intact. Time did what it always does when you stop fighting it. It kept moving forward and invited me to do the same. Months passed, and my life no longer felt like something I was repairing. It felt like something I was deliberately designing, not in a dramatic reinvention way, but in quiet, intentional choices that stacked up day after day. I changed small things first: my schedule, my priorities, the people I gave access to my time. I stopped explaining myself unnecessarily, stopped agreeing out of habit, stopped confusing comfort with truth. The silence that once scared me became my most reliable advisor. In business, I took a step back from constant expansion and focused on meaning, building systems that did not depend on my exhaustion, mentoring instead of micromanaging, trusting instead of controlling. The irony was that everything grew faster once I stopped forcing it. Success stopped feeling like proof and started feeling like alignment. People sometimes asked about my ex-wife, usually carefully, like they were stepping around glass. I answered, without bitterness, without stories, without details. We went separate ways. That was enough. I learned that the more complete your life becomes, the less you need to narrate the past. One evening, while attending a small private event, I met someone new. Not a love story moment, no sparks or dramatic tension, just an easy conversation that did not drain me. I noticed how different I felt: attentive but not anxious, open but not rushing, curious without projecting expectations. I did not pursue anything immediately, not out of fear, but out of respect for my own pace. I finally understood that being alone is not a waiting room. It is a place where you learn what you actually want to invite into your life. At some point, Lena moved away. I heard about it through distant connections. No emotion followed the news, just acknowledgement. I wished her a future that matched her growth, whatever that looked like. Not because she needed my forgiveness, but because I did not need to carry resentment. Forgiveness, I realized, is not an event. It is a boundary you set with the past, so it cannot interfere with the future. Looking back, the betrayal no longer felt like the central moment of my story. It felt like a turning point that revealed who I already was: someone who values loyalty but does not beg for it, someone who loves deeply but leaves decisively when respect is broken, someone who understands that walking away can be the most powerful form of self-trust. The email that once shattered my sense of safety now felt like an unlikely gift, not because of the pain it caused, but because it gave me information I would not have chosen to discover, but needed to. I did not lose 12 years. I gained clarity at the right moment, before bitterness replaced honesty, before compromise turned into self-abandonment. My life today is not louder or more impressive on the outside, but it is calmer, cleaner, stronger. I wake up without tension, work with purpose, connect with people from a place of choice, not fear. And when I look in the mirror, I recognize myself fully. There is no dramatic moral speech at the end of this story, just a simple truth. Betrayal did not break me. It refined me. It reminded me that dignity is not something you demand from others. It is something you practice yourself. And that quiet realization is the real victory.